JFC993 here to welcome you to my first ever deck profile video. I will start off by introducing my deck, which is my own personal creation. It would be categorized as a stun deck. If anything, it's meant to beat your opponent down while punishing them each time they try to make an advance on you or your monsters. And the reason it does that is because each time you make an attack, you will lose a monster, or multiple monsters for that matter. Oh, let's begin, I guess. To start off, we have 3 DD Warriors, 3 DD Warrior Ladies, and 3 DD Assailants. They're basically used to attack your opponent, and when they try to make a counter attack, they will lose their monster. Next, you have 3 Jujutsu Masters and 2 Wall of Illusions. Basically, they are again meant to stun your opponent and make them lose monsters. It's a powerful thing when you can control your opponent's next draw as well as making them lose a monster on the field. And Wall of Illusion is basically just to have your opponent lose a monster on the field, which is extremely important in this meta. Finally, we have 3 Cyber Dragons. Basically, they are 2100 beaters, which should have in most decks, because nowadays most decks are running at least 1800 attackers, which are 4 stars. So Cyber Dragon puts that in perspective. It's also good against machines and Machina for the reason that I can go Chimera Tech, which is a nightmare for you when you lose multiple monsters. Monster count totals out at 17 monsters, which isn't a lot for the meta, but it is supplemented by the spells and traps, I guess. Next, we have the spell cards. You have your basic Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, and 2 Mystical Space Typhoons. I really don't need to go into detail about them because most decks do run those. Then we have 2 Book of Moons. This is meant to slow down your opponent while you don't have a monster to exactly kill them with. Basically, this card is good against Glads, Blackwings, and pretty much any deck that you need 1 monster or more to start your chain off. It slows down combos, it stops them from attacking. Finally, we have 3 Pot of Dualities and Reinforcement of the Army. The Reinforcement of the Army is to search out the 9 warriors in the deck to make sure you have at least 1, and the 3 Pot of Dualities are to make sure that you will always have a needed card in your hand. The spell count tops off at about 10, which is average for the number of spells in the average deck nowadays, so it's normal. Finally, for traps, this is an important part of the deck. If not as important as the monsters, it's close. To start off, we have Mirror Force, Solemn Judgment, Oppression, Dust Tornado, Call the Haunted, and Torrential Tribute. Basically, they are staples, if to say the least. You really don't need to say anything about them because most decks do run them, for the exception of Oppression, I guess. Oppression's in there because the only monster I really special summon is Cyber Dragon, or use Monster Reborn or Call the Haunted, but any decent player can play around that, so it's good to have in there. Next, I have 2 Bottomless Trap Holes and 3 Compulsory Evacuation Devices. Basically, they are to stun your opponent. When your opponent summons a monster, the last thing they want to really happen is to lose that monster and be left with nothing. These two cards are basically good against most of the meta decks. Bottomless is good against Blackwings, Glads, Machina, Blackwings. Compulse is good against Blackwings, Glads, pretty much anything that you need 2 or more monsters on the field for. Compulse stops Blackwings from using their effects to special summon each other, and stops Glads from being able to contact food, which is also a big plus. The fact that they're both chainable is nice. Finally, we have 3-dimensional prisons. These are basically needed in a deck that you're going to punish your opponent for by attacking, because what better of a way than to be able to go 1-for-1 and remove your opponent's monster off with a 1-for-1 cost. That should be it. The trap lineup ends at 14 traps, leaving the total deck at 41. It's not 40, but because I'm running 3 Pot of Dualities and Reinforcement of the Army, I cycle through my deck fast enough anyway. So that's my stun deck. That's all that I have for now, except a little announcement. You guys should go over and check out my trade video, because I have decent stuff on there, and I'm also looking to get rid of a couple of my decks. I currently have a Final Countdown deck for trade, a Dandelion Warrior deck for trade. This deck would be for trade if anybody wants it. And basically that's it. You can either message me for more information or just leave a comment. Well, JFC993 signing out.